So here we go again, a rotating Earth. I think I speak for all of us when I say we're on the edge of our seats with excitement, waiting to see where we will land today. I have to say it feels a little chillier than usual. And that'll be why. Welcome to Sweden, the gatekeeper to the Arctic Circle. And here we are in the nation's capital of Stockholm, a collection of 30,000 islands and islets. So what can you see in this great nation? Well, the impish trickery of the Northern Lights is a good place to start. This is a country famed for its functional motorcars, its functional interior design, and for being the darlings of Eurovision. But we're here for the football, aren't we? Could a nation with just 10 million inhabitants be the location for your next football manager career? Who can you take charge of? What challenges are out there? Let's dive in to another League Lowdown. So, welcome to Sweden on Football Manager, arguably one of the most competitive nations that you could load up for your next save, and with 4 tiers to play through, it also offers great depth to fans of Football Manager as well. So, without further ado, let's have a look at the league structure. The top flight in Sweden is known as the Allsvenskan. It is a 16-team division with a 30-game season that kicks off in the springtime, plays through the warmer summer months and culminates in the autumn, which is something to bear in mind when thinking about when European games might be scheduled for the top Swedish clubs. The team that finished top of the Allsvenskan after 30 games are crowned as the champions or the gold medal winners. They gain a place in the Champions League for the next season. There are 4 places up for grabs for the Europa League. Those could all be from the league, depending on who the winner of the Swedish Cup is as well. And from FM21, don't forget there will be Europa Conference League places up for grabs as well. The bottom 2 in the Allsvenskan after 30 games are automatically relegated to the second tier, and the team that finishes in 14th have to go into a 2-legged playoff tie with the club that finishes 3rd in Sweden's second tier, which is known as the Superettan, where the top 2 are automatically promoted. That 3rd place team get the playoff place, and the teams in the bottom 2 positions in the Superettan drop out of this division at the end of the season, and the teams that finish 13th and 14th have to go into their own relegation playoff. The reason why 2 teams drop into a relegation playoff is because in Sweden's 3rd tier, the league is split into 2 regional divisions with a North division and a South division where the top teams are promoted, and those teams in 2nd place get into the playoffs. Below the 3rd tier in Sweden, there's a playable 4th tier as well, where clubs are divided amongst 6 regional divisions, all playing off for promotion to that 3rd tier. So you can see that there's quite a bit of depth for fans of lower league management saves in Sweden. But if we return to the top flight, who are the big clubs that you can take charge of in Sweden? So picking out any team of Sweden's giants is difficult in a country that has had 10 different winners of the Allsvenskan during the last 2 decades alone. Partly that is due to the 51% rule that they have in Sweden, which declares that clubs must be at least 51% owned by their own members, which often deters rich, powerful foreign owners from taking over any of the clubs and asserting their dominance over the league. But if we were to pick out perhaps one team in Sweden that is slightly more decorated than some of their rivals, then that team would probably be the team from the south, the producers of Zlatan Ibrahimovic, and that team would be Malmo. Now, the Sky Blues have got some pretty nice facilities with a 24,000-seater stadium, and they have won more Allsvenskan titles than any other team in the country, with 20 to their name, as well as 14 Swedish Cups as well. They are also the club that has gone the furthest in Europe's premier competition, reaching the final of the European Cup in 1979, before quite famously losing to Brian Clough's Nottingham Forest and missing out on being the first team from Scandinavia to win Europe's greatest prize. But if you are looking to take over a team where dominance is quite Well, quite likely during your football manager journey, then it might be that Malmo are the team for you. But what about rivals to Malmo? Who else is out there that could be a dominant force in Swedish football? If we are looking for a team to rival Malmo, then we might want to start with Stockholm's triangle of big clubs, AIK, Hammarby and Djurgården. If we begin with a team that has the biggest arena, well, that would be AIK, who play in the 50,000 capacity National Stadium. They are cruelly nicknamed by opposing fans as the Rodents because in the 1920s they felt on such hard times that their iconic black strip had to be worn for so long that the colour eventually washed out of it, turning to a dull grey, which opposition fans claimed made them look like a team of rats. They don't have quite the trophy cabinet that Malmo do, but they've still got 12 Allsvenskan titles and 8 Swedish Cups as well. So the team from the north of Stockholm, from an area known as Solna, might be a club that interests you. If not, we may want to check out one of Stockholm's other big teams, and that would be Hammarby, the team that are nicknamed Bayern. Not as in Bayern Munich, though, might be known to us maybe because of one of Football Manager's greatest ever sons, Kennedy Bakircioglu, whose career took in spells in Greece, the Netherlands and Spain before returning to his boyhood club, and this is one of Football Manager's original Wonder Kid signings. He managed to help Hammarby back into the Allsvenskan before retiring as a player in his last season, despite barely kicking a ball after he fell out of favour with the management team. He was brought onto the pitch for his penultimate game before retirement, gloriously curling home a 35-yard free kick late in the game, running triumphantly towards his adoring fans, grabbing a pint that was hurled from the back of the stand and downing the contents by the corner flag, thus securing his legendary status. Hammarby don't have quite the trophy cabinet that the other Stockholm clubs have. They've only got one Allsvenskan title just after the turn of the millennium, but they have a very fierce rivalry, not just with AIK, but with the team that they now share a stadium with. And that team is, well, that team is pretty difficult to pronounce. We are going to go with Djurgården and see how we get on with that. They are the co-inhabitants of the 32,000 capacity Tele2 arena along with Hammarby. They have a very fierce rival. These two clubs lead the way in terms of fan culture in Sweden, and they are both bitter rivals with AIK as well. Now, Djurgården can probably claim, along with AIK, to be the most successful club from the capital. FM20 has them listed as winning the Allsvenskan 11 times, but they also added the league crown in 2019 as well, taking them to 12 league victories, as well as the 5 Swedish Cups that they have got as well. So if you are looking for a big team from Sweden's capital to manage, well, if it's not Hammarby and it's not AIK, then maybe Djurgården might be the team for you. But maybe you fancy trying to restore one of Sweden's sleeping giants. Well, if you are looking for sleeping giants, Sweden delivers on several fronts. Let's start with arguably the biggest, the team we're bravely going to try and pronounce as IFK Goteborg. Now, they have a distinctive honour to their name. They are the only club in Scandinavia ever to have won a European honour, with 2 UEFA Cup victories back in the 80s. They've also got plenty of Allsvenskan titles to their name as well, although you can see from the years that they won them that since the turn of the millennium, they have been far less successful than they were during previous periods of their history. They've also got 7 Swedish Cup titles as well. And in the 90s, they reached a Champions League quarter-final, beating Barcelona and Manchester United on the way. But in recent years, success has eluded the team from the West Coast. So if you like the challenge of restoring one of Sweden's great names back to their former European glories, then Göteborg might just be the team for you. But maybe we can tempt you with a second sleeping giant, IFK Norrköping. Now, this team were huge in Sweden in the 1950s, when they had players like Gunnar Nordahl and Nils Lidholm, who would later go on and play for AC Milan, leading their attack. You can see that they've got 13 Allsvenskan titles. They won one in 2015, but before that, Their success was confined primarily to the 40s, 50s and 60s, but this is a team that was formerly one of the greatest clubs in all of Scandinavia. They've got 6 Swedish Cup titles as well, and perhaps are a slightly smaller team than you might get from the capital, but certainly a team that you could breathe new life into and take right to the top of the Swedish game. But if you're after a sleeping giant that provides a little bit more of a challenge, why don't we drop down to Sweden's 3rd tier, where we will find Åtvidaberg, who managed to win 2 Allsvenskan titles and 2 Swedish Cups, but all of their success came in the 1970s when the team from the copper mining town were bankrolled by a calculator manufacturer who went bust later on, and Åtvidaberg fell onto much harder times. But maybe you might just be that manager that can take a team from the 3rd tier of Swedish football and restore them to the top table. But outside of our sleeping giants, where can we go in Sweden if we fancy a youth academy challenge? So if you're a fan of youth academy challenges, Sweden's a more challenging country to do it in than others. The finances of the league mean that the clubs don't always have the facilities and the infrastructure that some of their more illustrious European neighbours might have. But they can boast the team that has the most youth players of any team in Europe, and that is a team from Stockholm called Brommapojkarna. Now, they have produced youth talents like Anders Limpar, John Cadetti, Bojan Djordjic, just to name a few. And for a team that is in the 2nd tier now of Swedish football, they've only got average training facilities and average youth facilities, but they've got excellent academy coaching and excellent youth recruitment. And they are known as the team in Sweden that produces players for other clubs. So it could just be that with a little bit of success and a little bit of infrastructure improvement, you might be able to take Brommapojkarna back to the top of the Swedish game using nothing but your own academy products. But what about grand old names of Swedish football? Who's the oldest club in this great nation? Well, we will find Sweden's grandest old name dwelling in the 2nd tier of Swedish football in the Superettan, and this is Örgryte, who are from the city of Gothenburg, and they have an incredibly successful history, with 14 Allsvenskan titles, although many of those won back when there were very few teams competing for it, but they've also got 1 Swedish Cup as well. This is a team that has been around since 1887 and played in the very first competitive fixture to take place in Sweden. So they are the oldest remaining club still active in Swedish football today. And if you love the idea of restoring those grand old names back to their former glories, well, Örgryte might just be the club for you. So there's our guide to Sweden on Football Manager, a nation that boasts big clubs that you can try and steer to continental glory, youth development challenges, grand old names that you can resuscitate, as well as some very healthy rivalries. And with 4 divisions to play through, it offers much for the fans of the lower league management save as well. We're going to see you very, very soon when we select another nation to make the focus of our next League Lowdown.